what you think. Look.
Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 151st episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So I mentioned this album in my last video as that was another Kanye West production from 2005, which you could make a pretty good argument for as the year with the single highest yield in his entire career. He was definitely already on a tear prior to that though, as he was pretty much incapable of putting out a bad beat from 2000 to 2006. Just some of the classic albums that he did instrumentals for at that time, aside from The College Dropout, of course, include Beanie Siegel's The Truth, both the Blueprint and the Black Album by Jay-Z, Dipset's Diplomatic Immunity, Scarface's The Fix, Twista's Kamikaze, Cameron's Come Home With Me, The Game's documentary, and T.I.'s Trap Music. It's been a pretty long time since I've talked about Kanye's game-changing debut, and I went into my complicated relationship with his music and him as a person in that video, so I'll leave a link for that one down below in the description, as I don't really feel like getting into what comments I find abhorrent or why. But to be transparent, I will say that I haven't listened to his newest album, and I really don't plan to, and if you think that isn't objective or fair, blow me. I spent a decade giving this dude chances and genuinely believing his heyday wasn't necessarily behind him, but especially in contrast to the era I'm discussing in these last two videos. To me at this point, it just feels like the dude's out of touch. And I don't mean with what's popular or trendy, because Ye has purposefully put himself in a position where regardless of the musical quality, his lapdogs will run to his whistle every time and lick his wounded ego until he once again thinks he's God. I mean, he isn't in tune with the essence of hip-hop, and what was once a burning passion to genuinely be the best has turned into an obsession about other people thinking that he's a genius who makes high art, which ironically he was closer to making on his first few albums when he actually just cared about rap. That's the really tragic thing to me, because you can see from the first few albums that Kanye put out that the dude had or even has potential to be a good person, and there actually was a point where he was thoughtful, creative, and pushing the genre forward. But it doesn't matter how much money, big names, or gimmicks he attaches to his new work, he will never be able to manufacture that initial respect that he gained through hard work, talent, and drive. I know people like to pretend that Yeezus is some game-changing moment that was years ahead of everyone else, but as I've mentioned a few times in the past, you can remove Dalek and all the other experimental acts that helped pioneer industrial hip-hop, and even still, that was a couple of years after Death Grips completely reimagined the rap game on ex-military. That's easily the most noticeable change in content and attitude when you go back to a project like Late Registration, as even when he did include flashy, more big bank moments like Gold Digger or Touch the Sky, they're masterfully crafted pop tunes opposed to just one line you hear on TikTok a bunch that isn't even Kanye rapping it. But it literally might as well be a completely different person from the blowhard we've come to put up with over the last decade. I mean, even when he was talking about bling on here, it's through a poignant and pretty well thought out concept with Diamonds from Sierra Leone. And it's actually pretty hard for me to even decipher which track is better between the original and the remix, as the latter may have the endlessly legendary Hope verse where he gives hip-hop one of its most memorable lines in the form of, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Let me handle my business, damn." Or other equally quotable moments like, "This ain't no tall order, this is nothing to me. Difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week. I do this in my sleep. I sold kilos of coke, so I'm guessing I can sell CDs." But while I may be in the minority here, I actually prefer Kanye's opening verse in the solo version of the song that appears as a bonus track on the back end of Late Registration. He slides in with probably a top 5 verse of his career, giving us "Close your eyes and imagine, feel the magic Vegas on acid seen through your Saint Laurent glasses. And I've realized that I've arrived cause it takes more than a magazine to kill my vibe." Does he write his own rhymes? Well, sort of. I think 'em. That means I forgot better shit than you ever thought of. Damn, is he really caught up? I ask, if you talking about classics, do my name get brought up? I remember I couldn't afford a Ford Escort or even a 4-track recorder, so it's only right I let the top drop on a drop top Porsche. Spoil yourself, it's important. If your stripper named Porsche and she get tips from many men, then your fat friend, her nickname is Minivan. As flawless as I think his debut LP is, personally Late Registration is my favorite Kanye album under his belt, as it similarly doesn't feature one lackluster moment, which can't be said about most of his following work. I know a lot of fans think My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is his magnum opus, and for some reason there's even a meme where people tend to act like Graduation is his best album, but I don't think a lot of real Kanye listeners say that, considering anyone who knows his work is probably aware of Drunken Hot Girls, and how the first two projects, or even My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, really don't have a song remotely that bad on them. I don't think Dark Fantasy necessarily dips down to that place of low quality, but for me there's still a couple moments here and there that don't quite live up to the earlier ones. Late Registration does the impossible, which is taking an artist like Adam Levine of Maroon 5, who hasn't been listenable for me since This Love, and actually making him bearable through a pretty enjoyable hook for the second track here. It also has some awesome bars from Ye pretty much front to back, though one of my favorite turns of phrases he has that sticks in my head is towards the end of his first verse, where he says, Allahu Akbar, and throw in some hot cars. Things we seen on the screen is not ours. But these people from the hood, so these dreams are not far. Where I'm from, the dope boys is the rock stars, but they can't cop cars without seeing cop cars. I guess they want us all behind bars. That's arguably the biggest benefit to listening to Kanye music from this era in his career, because he was rapping his ass off on literally every song, and if I had the time, I'd probably be sharing at least a few lines from every track. That isn't even mentioning the production, which didn't just save him from the sophomore album slump, but it remains so rich and full even to this day that it arguably even passes the college dropout in its diversity quota. It also is the last album in the trilogy to feature the hilarious thematic skits that build onto that concept of college, with the Wake Up Mr. West one probably being the most well-known interlude or skit in his career. But if there's one moment on here that really opens up Kanye's more vulnerable and sensitive side, it's definitely Roses, with both the verses and the instrumental setting a more emotional tone that we rarely see from Ye these days. He gives us another insanely memorable opening set of bars here with, I know it's past visiting hours, but can I please give her these flowers? The doctor don't want to take procedures. He claim her heart can't take the anesthesia. It'll send her body into a seizure. That little thing by the hospital bed, it'll stop beeping. Hey chick, I'm at a loss for words. What do you say at this time? Remember when I was 9? Tell her everything gon' be fine, but I be lying. Her family crying, they want her to live, and she trying. I'm arguing like what kind of doctor can we fly in? You know the best medicine go to people that's paid. If Magic Johnson got a cure for AIDS and all the broke motherfuckers passed away, you telling me if my grandma's in the NBA right now she would be okay? But since she was just a secretary working for the church for 35 years, things supposed to stop right here? My grandfather trying to pull it together, he's strong. That's where I get my confidence from. I asked the nurse, did you do the research? She asked me, can you sign some t-shirts? Bitch, are you smoking reefer? Can't you see that we hurt, but still? This arguably isn't even the most heartbreaking ballad to a family member on Late Registration, with the absolute gut punch Hey Mama being on here as well, which isn't necessarily a sad or depressing song per se. It's more heavy in retrospect, with the added context of his mother passing away not too long after due to complications during surgery. I really can't talk too much about the song specifically because I'll start choking up, But I will leave a link in the description to the live performance he did of the song on Oprah with his mom there in person, because I don't think I've ever once gotten through that video without just bawling by the end, as I believe that was her first time hearing it. It might have been his first time debuting the single. One moment I don't often hear discussed off LR is the pretty experimental and forward-thinking song Addiction, which is frankly an amazing take on the vices involved with being hooked on a substance and the mix of enjoyment and shame that comes with a habit. I had to pick one more song to share some killer lines from here, so I thought I'd go with another moment I've always loved personally, that being Kanye's first verse on the politically and racially charged crack music, which also sees him make some pretty concise and interesting comparisons to the drug game and the music industry. He starts with "How we stopped the Black Panthers." Ronald Reagan cooked up an answer. "You hear that? What Gil Scott was hearing when our heroes and heroines got hooked on heroin. Crack raised the murder rate in DC and Maryland. We invested in that. It's like we got Merrill lynched. And we've been hanging from the same tree ever since. Sometimes I feel the music is the only medicine, so we cook it, cut it, measure it, bag it, sell it. The fiends cop it. Nowadays, they can't tell if that's that good shit. We ain't sure, man. Put the CD on your tongue. Yeah, that's pure, man." I could genuinely make the video over an hour with all the amazing concepts and how they're executed, but that isn't even mentioning the heap of guest appearances that take up the feature spots on this thing. Besides Adam Levine and Jay-Z, one of the guest verses comes from Common, who, as I mentioned in my previous video, gets an interlude solely designated for him, where he snaps with non-stop quotable lines. But there's also features by the likes of Jamie Foxx, Paul Wall, GLC, Cameron, Consequence, Really Doe, Brandy, The Game, Lupe Fiasco, and Nas. However, as any Kanye fan knows, he isn't sitting there crafting these masterpieces alone. He always had some other talented producers and or engineers to assist with certain songs. And for his second LP here, that included Just Blaze, John Bryan, Devo Springsteen, and Baby Dub. As you can tell from how I've talked about this classic, of course I wouldn't opt to remove any tracks, but to narrow it down, I'm going to leave out most of the ones I discussed by name, leaving my honorable mentions as Gold Digger, Drive Slow, My Way Home, Bring Me Down, Addiction, Celebration, and Late. For my overall top 3 favorites, I think I'd have to go with Gone, We Major, and Touch the Sky. Thank you for watching my 151st video. Next time we're kind of keeping up with this theme by doing an album I talked about in this video. So check for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments are from this top-tier sophomore effort from Kanye. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Such a thing. Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped in clay, carrier planes.